I could have $100 million business right now, today, and I would hate my life. So I don't. And that right there is the crux of the conversation that I want to have with all of you. Have you ever spent the quiet minutes of the morning or the late evening with one thought in your head, and that is, why am I even doing this? If you're a business owner, you have probably thought this more than once, and today we're going to dive into how you answer that question and what the answers reveal. I'm Melissa Franks, the host of the Opt-in podcast, and this is where we go from surviving to thriving in business. And if ever there were a topic to discuss, it's the underlying motivation that you had at the beginning to start your business, and if your life, your day-to-day actually reflects what your expectation was when you started. You see, I consume a ton of content, which all of you know. I just spent a week with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and the conversation that was really lighting the room on fire during the breaks and at lunch and at dinner wasn't what we were learning in the room. It was, how are we managing to do it all? And this morning, in fact, I was listening to a podcast that Emma Greed is the host, Aspire is the podcast, and she had Kristen Cavallari on, and Kristen said, I could have $100 million business right now, today, and I would hate my life. So I don't. And that right there is the crux of the conversation that I want to have with all of you. We have worked inside of well over 50 businesses in the last couple of years. And I personally have worked with many of these founders. And when somebody gets on a consultation call with us and says, I don't want to run my business anymore, or I hate my business, or I'm not even sure I should be doing this, even though the business is profitable, we know that the first place to start is to dig into what was going on at the very beginning. Why did you even take the leap? Why did you quit the job? Why did you start the side hustle that turned into the full hustle? Like, what was actually happening? And almost always, the answer is a vision of a future that they don't yet experience that they want to live. And for everybody, it is different. Right? For every single person on the planet, when you think about your future, you have a different perspective of what that's going to be and the timing for that than the person sitting next to you. There are no two that are the same. Even people that are like in a long-term committed relationship, you don't have the same views of that. And so we really dig into what that was when you started, day one, day zero. What were you imagining would come on the other side of that? And how far apart is your reality from that vision? And often, you know, as the goalpost moves in our business, like, I just want to make $10,000 a month. I just want to make $50,000 a month. I just want to make $1 million a year, right? That we move those goalposts, often the vision of the life that we're working towards moves with the goalpost. And what can happen when both the business goalposts move and then the vision goalposts move is that you start to feel the weight of never actually achieving what you set out to achieve. Super deep, right? This is going to be a little bit of a touchy-feely thing today. So when I was listening to Kristen say that, and I was listening to all the conversations in the room, and then I was reflecting back on many of the conversations that we've had, because while we've worked with over 50 businesses, I've had hundreds of conversations with entrepreneurs because we do free consultations. So I get an opportunity to meet people of all walks of life in all areas and all industries. And this one thing we always come back to, what are we working towards? So the first thing that I want to ask you today is, if you own a business, what are you working towards? And if you immediately, when I ask you that question, think, I have no idea, then you should just pause this right now and come back to it when you have an answer. And it can be what I was initially wanting to work towards is this, and now I'm uncertain of what I'm working towards. That's fine, but you have to have an answer to the question before we can continue this conversation. Because what I'm hopeful of is by the time we get through today, you're going to be able to walk away with an understanding of what you need to do next. Sounds good, right? So the first thing is, why are we even doing it? What's the life we want? What's the objective that we want to have? And guys, I'm going to pause right here because I am not talking about your why. And if you know me in real life, you know that every time somebody says, like, what's your why? I want to climb out of my skin. I want to jump out of a window. I want to like run around in circles because I think it's pedantic. And I think it's an easy way for people to not have to understand their underlying motivations. And so I would much prefer all of us not talk about our why, because what people are going to say is our family, or they want to donate to charity, or, you know, they want to have time freedom. Like, it's the why is never actually what's going on. So I'm not asking you about your why. I'm not even asking you about your purpose. I'm also not asking you about your value system. None of that. What I am asking you about are your dreams. What I'm asking you about is that thing that you wanted so bad that you threw everything away to go after it. Was it money? Was it that you wanted to be a millionaire? Was it that you wanted FU money and you could literally do whatever you wanted? Was it that you wanted notoriety and fame? Was it that you wanted to be able to stand on a stage? Was it that you wanted to be able to be respected? Like, you don't need to tell anybody the answer to this question. So, like, be honest. Like, be real honest about why you started this thing. I will be very honest with you. And I've said this before. I started my business. My goal was to be able to do two things. Be able to continue the quality of life that my children had when I worked for somebody else, and have enough income to be able to fight a lengthy family court battle. It's now been 3 years. That will result in a divorce for which I likely am going to need to have cash to resolve. So my goal was literally two things: to be able to make enough money to live and to resolve what was going on in my personal life. However long it took. That was it. Literally, that was it. There was no thought to, I'm going to exit this business at 50 million one day. There was no thought to, I'm going to grow this huge team. There was no thought to, I'm going to be a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure business. None of it. My vision, my dream was to have enough financial flexibility to be able to achieve those two goals. That was it. So when I'm asking you why, like, what was the thing that just pushed you over the edge and had you start the business? It can be as tactical as that. It does not need to be this flowery whatever, and it can be as shallow as you want it to be. If you always wanted to be recognized for your gifts and your ability and your brain, and you were not in your life, and you wanted to be able to start this business so that you got that public recognition, cool. Just be honest with yourself. Because until you are honest with yourself, you are going to be unable to achieve that vision. And what that is going to create is dissatisfaction, angst, and misunderstanding about your business. So what happens when we don't understand this? And this is really what I want to deep dive into. What happens when you don't understand that driver, that thing that's motivating you? When you don't understand what that is, you cannot determine if you have achieved it. Thing number one. When you don't understand what that is, you start adopting what others have as your vision. Case in point, if you don't understand what your underlying motivation, what was driving you, what you were trying to get to, right? Then as you start to see people say, I have a 7-figure business, you're like, well, I want a 7-figure business. Or you see people say, I get paid $100,000 to stand on a stage. Well, I want to be a speaker that gets paid $100,000 to stand on a stage. Or you see somebody say, I just had a $50 million exit. Well, I want to have a $50 million exit, right? Those are other people's results. I don't even know if those are the other people's drivers and motivations. Those are their results. And as soon as you start chasing somebody else's results, if they're not tied to the thing, to the driver, to the motivation, what's going to happen is as you endeavor to work towards that goal, you're going to start making choices and decisions that are misaligned. And then that's when you get to the place where you're like, I hate my business. I don't like my employees. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get out. I want somebody to come in and run this whole thing, and I just want to go off and ignore it. That's how you get there. It's not hustle. It's not burnout. It's not all of the problems and stress that come with business ownership. Because when you have pristine clarity about what your driver was and that your actions are aligned with getting you there, you don't freaking question it. And so this is why when you hear somebody like Kristen Cavallari say, I have a $50 million business and I could have a $100 million business and I would hate the life that I have to live in order to make that happen. So I don't. That's because she knows what her driver is. That's because she understands what she wants her reality to look like. And if you continue to listen to that podcast, and this is a Kristen Cavallari thing, so this is not a you thing, as you continue to listen to that, what she talks about, and this really resonates with me because of the season of life that I'm in, is that her kids are getting older. And she's only got 5 years left with her oldest in her house, and she's only got 8 years left with the youngest in her house, and she doesn't want to miss it. And so for her driver was, I want financial independence. She's been very vocal and clear about that. And I want that financial independence to allow me to be with my children when they are not in school. So it allows me to only work when they are, right? That's what she says. You can go listen to it on the podcast. You can go listen to it in other places. She literally said, my driver is financial independence so that I can have this life. And she's got it. So you know what she's not? She's not frustrated with her business. She's not burnt out. She's not out there complaining. She's not looking for a buyer. And she's not trying to chase some astronomical growth while trying to preserve this life that she has. That intrinsically is what balance looks like, because she's honest with herself about what her driver motivation is and that she's achieved it. Now, of course, there's work to maintain it so that she doesn't lose it, but she knows she's there. And there is nothing wrong with getting there and being happy. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what I really need to do? I need to be able to bring home to myself $500,000 a year to live the life that I want. And when you get there, you get to stay there. There is no reason for you to feel pressure to continue to grow your business or to pivot or to start another one just because you've achieved what you were motivated to achieve. That's actually the goal, right? That's the win. That's the flex. I started this thing to have this and now I've got it and I'm good. What a gift, right? And so in the room this week when I was talking to these entrepreneurs and they were saying, you know, a lot of them were parents and they were saying it's really difficult to split my time and split my focus. And I feel like I spoke with one woman, in fact, and she said, I feel like I'm neglecting my children because I'm working while I'm with them. And we went through this little exercise, which I'm going to teach you right now. I'm going to invite you to do as well so that you can determine if this is the place that you're in and maybe then this is the way that you can get out of it. So while we were standing, this doesn't take long, mind you, while we were standing face to face, I said, okay, so you're feeling some resentment towards your business. You're feeling some guilt because you think you're being not a great parent. Like, I get it. I hear you. So let's unpack it a little bit. Why is that happening? And the first thing I asked was, why are you in this line of work and not doing it for somebody else? And her answer was, well, because I do it differently than other people. And I felt so passionate that the way that I do it is the most beneficial way to do it that I decided to turn that into a business. And I said, okay, well, that's super great. Like, that's like, you're mission driven. I said, and like, are you trying to make a bunch of money? Are you trying to like make this do you want like world domination? Kind of like, where are we going? And she said, no, not really. As long as my family can live comfortably and we can go on some vacations a year and we can all be together, it's it. I've achieved it. And I said, well, how far away are you from that right now? And she paused for a minute and she said, well, I've achieved it. And as soon as I said that, you could just see this like calm wash over her. And I said, okay, so you've achieved it. And what happens if some of these things that are frustrating you about having to work when you're with your kids or, getting pulled away, what happens if you just solve those little problems? Does the business suffer? No. Does your quality of life improve? Yes. Great. Solve those problems. And then what was really interesting, and this is what I wanted to share the story with you, she said, but I want to do more. My vision of what was going to happen when I started this business has been achieved. She like agreed with me on those points. She said, and I have this other vision I want to work towards. And I said, well, that's great, right? That's growth, right? We all change. We all experience new things. We get older, priorities shift and change. Let me tell you, I've got some goals that are so scary I don't want to say them out loud that I didn't have in 2023 when I started this business. And so it's really, really natural to have your vision change and have your goals change. But when they're not your underlying motivation, they're not the thing that started you down the path, you can get really distracted by them, right? And so when she told me what her new goals were, I said, does that move you closer to or away from the vision of life, your driver, why you started this thing? Does it move you closer or farther away? And her immediate answer was, it moves me farther away because I have to dedicate more time, energy, and focus and attention. And I said, okay, great. So it's going to move you farther away. Is now the right time? And she paused for quite a while. I'm not going to make you go through that long pause with me. And she said, no, it's not the right time. And in that short 5-minute conversation, by identifying the motivation in the driver, by identifying that it had actually been achieved, and then by identifying that there was another goal out there that she desperately wanted to start working towards, that would move her further away from what her original driver motivation was, it became so clear to her that now was not the right time. So clear. And it doesn't mean, no, I'm not going to. It just means that right now, today, the trade-off isn't worth it. And when we take decisions, all we're doing is deciding which one we want, the good and the bad. Because with every decision, good and bad comes. So if she had decided, I want to grow this sucker, I want to do all of the work that it takes, I want to do all of the things, and I'm okay with the trade-off that I'm going to spend less time with my family. I'm okay with that. Because in the long run, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z, right? But you have to be honest with yourself when you have achieved the thing that you were initially trying to achieve, and then you decide to move the goalpost. You have to be honest about what it's going to take. And you have to be honest about whether or not it's worth it, at least right now. As I said a little bit earlier, I never planned for this business to be what it is. I'm very, very grateful that we have evolved so rapidly and we have had a good level of success. And also, I'm in a season of my life where I know that I have limited time with my kids before they become adults. I have one that's going to be an adult in less than a year. And my time with them is incredibly precious and valuable. And so I made a decision this spring that I would work when they were in school. And if it went along with their schedules, I would work for a few hours after they got out of school. And if not, then that was their time. In addition, I made a decision that this summer they could do all the things. They could do the travel sports. We would travel around. We would do all the things. And I did that eyes wide open, knowing that we had gotten to a level of comfort and the business was running at a level of stability with solid growth that I could pull back so that I could realize and live this vision and dream that I had when I started this. I wanted nothing more when I started this. Remember, I had two very distinct financial goals, and I have achieved them. And so that meant that I could then have the flexibility, as long as I didn't, throw the baby out with the bathwater, to be able to reap the rewards of achieving that by spending more time with my kids. Now, one would argue that I'm in this like upward growth cycle, so why am I slowing down? Why am I pulling back the reins? Well, first of all, friends, it's like 3 months of me pulling back the reins. Not even. It's like half of June and a week of August. So will it impact the business in the short term? For sure. For sure. There's just less I can do, right? But in the long run, for me as a human, I will not regret it. And this is why. Because when I considered how this period of time could have gone, I really had two choices to make. Did I want to be there when I could, or did I want to be there all the time? And how would I feel if I made the choice to be there when I could? And I realized that I would regret it. That would be one of the periods in my life where I looked back and said, I probably should have made a different decision. And I was unwilling, eyes wide open, to do that. And so what I said was, then I will find a way to mitigate the risk to the business plateauing for a bit so that I can do this thing. And that is a difficult decision to make for somebody that's a high achiever and a high performer and wants to go, 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 go. And I'm the queen of moving the goalpost and all the things. It was a very difficult decision point for me because I really had to think and say, what's motivating me? What am I doing all this for? And what does that look like in comparison to my work and my business? Now, these conversations also come up in very interesting ways. And so you remember a few minutes ago, we were talking and I said that if you don't understand your underlying driver motivation, then what you do is you start adopting that of other people. And when we work with business owners and they say things like, I want a $30 million exit, or I want an 8-figure business. In fact, I was just sitting at a table a few nights ago and there was a handful of people saying, we're all going to have $100 million businesses. And in the back of my head, the whole time I was like, why? Why? Like, why do you want a $100 million business? Like, what is it about your life specifically at that level that you're working towards? Of course, I didn't ask because I wasn't about to throw a flamethrower into the middle of a dinner party. I do have some situational awareness, but it just got me thinking that I have so many of these conversations with people where they come forward and they're like, my goal is this financial number. And when I start to ask them why, get me back to the basis, nobody knows. So if you are in the comparison trap, if you're out there working towards something because your peers are, or you're seeing people on the internet do it, or your financial advisor told you it was smart, or whatever it might be, I want you to really ask yourself, what that's going to give you, the human. Not the business, not your balance sheet, not any of that stuff, but you, the human. And is the activity and actions that you're taking right now worth it to get there? Because if the answer is no, then just stop and reset and figure out what your motivation is, and then figure out how to move towards that. I think the biggest fallacy in business as a whole, or at least in the small business entrepreneurial landscape right now, is that you need to work yourself to death, that you need to work 7 days a week and nights and weekends and not have boundaries, and you'll get to live your life later. I just don't think that the two things are true. I also will tell you that there are seasons in entrepreneurship where you are doing it all. When you first start out, you do everything. And for a very long time, much longer than you think, you are still doing most things. You are supervising, you are reviewing, you're getting your hands in things, you're looking at copy, your quality assurance, the actual products, you're still working with clients. There's an incredibly long tail to how long you are actually doing most of the things or touching most of the things in your business. And that is okay. You are okay with that as long as you have balance. And that balance is that you are moving closer to that vision that you wanted so badly when you started. So what I don't want to have you walk away with today, and I would be doing a very bad job if you walked away with this, I don't want you to walk away with the impression that I believe that you should just pull back from your business and all good things are going to come. No. If I want my business to grow, I need to do more work. I do. I need to work longer hours. I need to produce more in general. And so that is likely the case for you too. It's just a matter of you sitting down and thinking, what are the trade-offs? How do I want to manage this? And what is good enough before you move the goalpost and you start working towards it? Always make a plan. Always. So if you wake up at 2 a.m. tomorrow and you say, you know what I want? I want a $5 million business in the next 12 months and you have $1 million business right now. I want you to sit down and I want you to build the plan to get to 5 million. And then I want you to understand in a very detailed fashion, if this is what I have to do to get to 5 million, what is it going to ask of me? And what am I going to have to give up? And when you have that list of what you have to give up, I want you to really assess it and say, is 5 million worth giving up all that? And if the answer is yes, go get it. Go right now. And if the answer is no, then maybe you need to reevaluate your timeline, or maybe you need to reevaluate your goal. But don't chase the 5 million just because you think you should. Do it because it's going to get you to that next place, to that next thing or vision or life or home or whatever it is that you are working towards, and you have decided that the sacrifices or trade-offs you have to make are worth it to get there. I hope this was helpful. If you're feeling frustrated or stressed out, or that you hate your business, we solve that problem here at On Call COO. So you can always book a free consultation call with us. We'd be happy to hop on the call, discuss what's going on, and help you figure out if you lost touch with that driver that you had initially. We'll help you get back on track, and then we'll help you set some goals that are realistic so that you can live both your life that you love and love your business at the same time. Until next time, friends, please know that you are wise and you are strong and you're capable, and I believe in you.